What is masking fluid?
Illustrations by Pete.
So not that long ago, someone by the name of A, just the letter A, that's all there is to the name. They asked, what is masking fluid? What is it? What is it made of? How does it work? It's latex. It's basically a latex rubber. It even gives warnings for people that are allergic to latex on the bottle. At least this one does. This is the Pebo drawing gum. It's this one. It's blue. And then it dries blue so you can see where it is. You put the watercolor on. It adheres to the page. Forms a latex barrier so you can put the watercolor on. You get the color all over the place and then you just peel it off. This stuff peels off very well just with your finger. I started to use an eraser, didn't work very well, and then I just used my thumb and just it pulls right off. So there's a lot of different names for this. It could be called masking fluid. This one's called drawing gum, or it could be called frisket. There's a lot of different names. Basically all it is a liquid latex. It dries and becomes like a rubbery latex film on the paper. You have to test your paper first because some papers, they just tear right up with the stuff. The paper I'm using today does not, but usually you'll see sometimes you'll use it. Test it out first. Don't just put it on your good paper and then you ruin it. You'll be very pissed off about that and you might blame me, but it's not my fault. Can you see that right there? It says latex right there. That's what it is. Now I'm going to show you how I use it. It doesn't mean that's how everybody, there's so many different things you can do with it. Basically, you're protecting the highlight of the page. So you can do that. But you can also paint an area and then mask it off. And then paint around it without damaging the area you've already painted and peel it off. However, I have to warn you, some of those masking fluids will stain that area then. Or they might pull up some of the paper, like I was saying, and damage it. So I don't recommend using it like that, but some people do. I've seen it used like that before successfully. I don't use it that way. Alright, so let's get into this drawing. Alright, so this is the Canson Heritage hot press paper. This is, again, the gum that I'm using, or the masking fluid that I'm using. And then I'm just using an old brush that the bristles are a little messed up with, and that's how I'm going to start. So just as a side note, make sure that it'll tell you on the bottle, usually you can dip your brush in soap so it doesn't stick to it, because once it dries, the latex is in between the bristles, it destroys it. I happen to only use certain brushes for this, so I will always use this brush for this. I still clean it out as quickly as possible and try and get everything out of it, so just so I don't destroy it completely. But I only use the same brushes for this stuff. I use a thin brush, a thick brush, and like a medium brush. This is like the medium brush. So you're definitely going to want to pick a brush, like a cheap garbage brush that you're going to use for this kind of thing. Okay, so now we'll get into the real reason why everybody's here. I know that you're really here for the stories, not so much for the art itself, not so much for the advice. There's only so much you could say about masking fluid. This is just the kind of art that I'm going to create to show you an example of it, but really, how much am I going to say about it? It's a latex that goes on a page. I've already said that 100 times. We're going to have a story time here. So by now you're probably sick of me saying, oh, I'm going to do certain things soon, and then I never do them. But basically, this is something that will happen. I want to do like a dry run for a live stream. It will not be a live stream at all. It's going to just be me talking, doing a kind of like a real-time drawing and talking to you, and see if I can talk that long, because whenever I do, I end up sticking my foot so far in my mouth that I'm just spitting shoelaces for a month. I always have to stop and edit myself because I say things I should not be saying. Not bad things. I'm not saying I'm saying terrible things, but you know, there are certain rules on YouTube, and you have to honor those rules. And if you say certain things, like I could talk about myself when I was younger, maybe doing an activity that I shouldn't be mentioning on YouTube, because then YouTube flags it and they say, hey, you're talking about this subject and you can't talk about this subject, or then we're going to demonetize your video. And if I'm going to do a live stream and it's going to be an hour long, I'd hate for it to be demonetized when that could be some decent income from that thing. So I want to go ahead and try to do this. I'm going to try and do a real-time drawing. I can't cut out too much because you'll be drawing. You'll miss part of the drawing, and then you'll be like, oh, so I guess he stuck his foot in his mouth that time. So I'm going to try to do that in one of these next videos soon. Hopefully it works out. I really do hope that it works out, because I want to try and do that. And I'd love to do something while you can react to me and talk to me at the same time. That would be wonderful. So honestly, I really don't have that much to say all the time. I usually have a couple talking points. I talk for a little while, and then I stop the video, and then I speed up the rest of the drawing to match the talking, and that's the video. It's just like I'm doing now. I'm talking now, and I'm going to speed up the video to match this, so that way it looks like it's planned, and it works out perfectly that I was talking right up until the point I was done. Really, it's not what's happening. But I need to do that for a live stream. You need to keep talking. You can't, and I have a hard time. I'll be into something when I'm drawing it, and everything else goes out of my head. Any kind of thought other than what I'm doing goes out of my head, which is a nice relief sometimes, but not if you're trying to talk to people while you're doing this. It's not a relief then. And that's when I'm worried that my filter will be removed while I'm just concentrating on the art and I say something very dumb. So this story is not going to be very long. I just want to talk about my first car. My first car was, I was younger, I was just out of high school, and I had a job that I was working at a glass factory that my uncle got me the job, and that is a separate story. That is the worst place to ever be in for anyone. A glass factory that does not adhere to any kind of safety rules. They just say get the work done. They don't care how you do it. And so your life is at risk at every point in that game. And I almost had a very bad accident and could have been killed. And I'll tell you that story. That's another time. I'll leave that one for the live stream. But basically, I had my uncle coming to pick me up. It was the week after I ended high school. I graduated. Week after, he's there picking me up, taking me to work. So that's how that worked out, and I had to save up some money and bought a very cheap car. It was I say very cheap. It was a Ford Mustang. It was an '88 Mustang, but it was only about, I think it was $2,200, and I talked the guy down to $1,800. But then I had to add the taxes and titles. It went back up. You know how that works. So anyway, I get this car. It's not in the greatest shape. I mean, it's already a 10-year-old car at this point, roughly. I think I graduated in '97, so it's probably, it was not that long. It wasn't into '98, but it was about a 10-year-old car. I mean, it's already on its last legs. It's at this crappy lot where there's just dirt on it, and it was not a good place to be. And so I pull out, and let me tell you, the first thing I realized is that it was stuttering the whole way as I was trying to drive. Because, like everything else when I first do something, I'm a moron, and I left the emergency brake on. So that was a fun time. I was going down the road, the thing was started to smell, the brakes are getting hot, and I left the emergency brake on, moron. So I had to go, I pulled over, I'm like, something's wrong, and I realized, I gotta put this lever down to drive the car. You know, I should not have been in that car if I couldn't tell that, but it doesn't matter. So, and this car was not something to be very proud of. I mean, I liked it, was a Mustang, whatever, it was nice. And not really. It was old and beat up, and there was no dents on the outside or anything, but you know how the inside fabric on the ceiling was starting to droop a little bit, and by the time I got rid of that thing, it was hanging pretty low. So it wasn't the greatest shape. And the first thing that you do when you have this '88 Mustang that only has a 1.8 liter engine in it is you pop those numbers off the side, because that's embarrassing. Everybody else has the 5.0 on the side. You have the 1.8. You pop those numbers off. That's terrible. Then the worst thing about it, the most embarrassing thing about it was after about a month or so, every time I made, I think it was a left turn, every time I made a left turn, the horn would honk. So I would be driving down the road, I'd make a left turn, the horn would start honking until I got out of the turn and straightened out the wheel, and then it was better. But at the end, it was not like that. So it got worse and worse, and I'm on my way to my girlfriend's house, which was my wife at the time. No, my wife now, she was my girlfriend at the time. I go down her road and I made a left and the horn starts honking and didn't stop. So the whole way down to a very long road, probably about 2 blocks worth of road. And it was honking the whole time. I had to pull over. I pulled the cap off the steering wheel, the top off, and then I had to disconnect the horn. And then I had to get a license plate, the sign that I put in the back window that said, "Horn broke, watch for finger," because that's what you do when your horn breaks. So that's what I did. And this car plagued me for a long time. It was just the worst thing. Then it was after we got married, we're on our way to our honeymoon. We said, oh, we're going to take this car it was into Pennsylvania, the Poconos. We had just an overnight at the Caesar. What was it? I forget what it was. It's like the Caesar's Love Palace, something, whatever it is. It's nice because you have probably like an 8x10 pool in your room off of your master bedroom. It was a beautiful place. We spent a night there because we were broke. And so then we came back and we said, okay, look, let's go back to the Poconos where her grandfather had a little vacation trailer. And we went and got the keys for the trailer and went to go to the Poconos for the rest of our honeymoon. And it was a very nice trailer park, by the way. It's like everybody knows each other and they're all decorated. They're all there year round and that kind of stuff. And most of them are vacation things, but a lot of people are there year round just to vacate. They're retired or whatever. So anyway, we decided to go. We're on the George Washington Bridge in New York City. And the transmission fails. It just breaks down. The car starts smoking. We're in the middle, in traffic. So we're about an hour and a half away from where we need to be. And we can only go maybe 25, 30 miles an hour the whole way there. It should only take us an hour and a half. It takes us 4 hours to get there. And then I get there and the mechanic is like, okay, look, this is going to cost, like $3,000 to fix. Your whole transmission is destroyed. You ran it for so long after it blew, so now we have to fix this gasket and do this and do that. Really, we just got married. We had some money that was put aside for our first apartment, which was a very nice apartment. It was a 1-bedroom, very small, but in a nice area. It was right behind a Kmart, so really close to shopping. You just take the back road right up behind the store. It was interesting. So, and we were across from the tennis courts, and you had a little glass sliding door in your master bedroom, which is weird, especially when the back is like this weird woodsy area where there's people on the other side of it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, we got there, and he's like, look, this is how much it's going to cost. And I said, okay, look, we can't handle this. This is not something we can do. I'll tell you what. Here's the title. You keep it. I'm not paying for your inspection or whatever you did, your evaluation. I'm not paying for any of that. You just take the car. And he was happy with that, and I was happy with that. Then I was rid of that car. The only problem with that is that we now were only stuck with one car, which was my wife's Camaro, which is a very nice, it was an 87 IROC Camaro. Again, probably one of the worst shaped cars that you've ever seen in your life. It would frequently overheat. The catalytic converter was probably destroyed multiple times. More than one time. 2 or 3 times. We had all of a sudden, there would just be antifreeze pouring into the car from the vents. From the floor vents, there's just antifreeze pouring into the car. It was terrible. We'd have to flush the thing every other day. That was another nightmare. It had different color doors and different color roof, and it was like silver, like unpainted, but the rest of it was maroon. And it would have been a nice car if we had money to repair it all the way, but it was just not, and we couldn't do it. And one day we were working at the same place. It was a nursing home. I was in the kitchen. She was, I believe, it was her second job. She was over in the laundry department. She was also working at the Kmart that was there. And we would maybe early 20s because we had just been married. Well, we weren't even 20 yet, as a matter of fact, because we had just been married, and I was married at 18. She was 20. And then we're sitting there, and she pulls in, and all of a sudden that happened. The antifreeze starts pouring in the vents, pours out from under the car, fills the nursing home parking lot with antifreeze. It was terrible. It was a horrible thing that happened. And then we just said, okay, guy comes and tows it away, and we told him to keep it too. So we eventually just, that's all we could do. It's just, we had crap cars most of the time. We were very poor people. We didn't really have a lot of money, but we were young and stupid, so we were happy, and we were, oh, it doesn't matter, we'll just do whatever. We're very resilient people when you're young. You're very resilient. You don't really, I mean, it depends. I guess depends on what you go through. Some people, something little happens, like they stub their toe and it's the end of the world and the world is crumbling around them and they have terrible luck and all this other stuff. For us, it wasn't like that. It was kind of like, okay, there's just something else we have to deal with, and we have to deal with it. That's just how you do it. So that was just a quick story. These are the kinds of stories you're going to hear when I do that live stream, because I don't really have much else to talk about. I'm just going to talk about what I'm doing, what I have done, the first thing that pops into my mind, or what have you. And so that's what I'm going to do. I hope you enjoy that. I hope you enjoy the stories and the things that happen to me that are disasters, that are just absolutely just terrible things. But that's okay. We get through them and we move on, and they're things you can laugh about later, and you have to laugh about them later, because if you pile them all up, they load up to a large pile of crap. You don't want to just say, oh, look at this, it's a large pile of crap. You laugh at the little things. That's what you have to do. And even if they're not little, you have to make them little in your head. That way you can laugh at them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of how I use masking fluid. It's very simple. You just paint a little area so that you want to preserve white. And I usually go back in and make it a different color, but I wanted to put it in front or whatever. It just make it a brighter color compared to everything else around it. I don't even know what this is. Some kind of weird, like, tendril, like, pot with, maybe there's a lot of upside down, like, squid in there or something, and they're boiling in a pot. I don't really know what this is, but you just make up your own thing, whatever this is. You decide yourself. Well, thumbs up the video if you have ever had a piece of crap car and you were trying to get somewhere important and it just gave out on you and you were like, that's it. You just leave it where it is, take the tags off, scratch off the VIN number, and that's it. We're leaving. Now, don't do that. Don't ever do that. But you're just done with it. And you're like, okay, look, the mechanic, you can keep it. I don't even want it fixed anymore. Let me know. All right, that's about it for me. I'm going to go, and I'll see you in the next one.